Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my goodness, this is so strange. I had to go back to an old link to get in. This is so strange. Okay. Well, hi everybody. I'm glad this worked. Oh my goodness. I don't
Yeah.
I
On
pretty
my end, it said that you had another meeting in progress.
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
linked on with my old, the one I've been always using. Remember how we had a confusion last week too? Um, and then I switched over to an old link that I had in my email. So anyway, well, it's okay. Welcome everybody. How are you
Hi.
guys? You're all
Good.
you're all hanging in there?
Hmm.
Yeah, Brenda, it's nice to see you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Both my Brendas.
Wait, which
Yeah.
Brenda?
Both of you guys. I missed you both last week.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Hi,
Thank you. I'm glad to
Cheryl.
be back.
Yes.
Hello,
Hi.
everybody.
Hi, Ace.
Yeah.
All right. So we don't have Susan today, so I'm flying blind, you guys. It's so
Mhm.
scary for me.
Oh,
So, but we have some really good stuff today. How did you guys do? So, I know that we're kind of all working, it seems like at different paces with our relationship graph, our grief recovery, our graph history, and then our assigning of apologies and forgiveness statements and significant emotional statements, right? So we're all kind of like, I know everyone's kind of like in different places. Can you guys kind of help me know where you're at in your process? Because the last thing we're doing is what we're going to launch into today. And I'm going to give you guys a little overview, and then direct you to where to go in the book to kind of help you finish up this process. And then we're gonna do our last assignment, and then we're gonna read our letters to each other over the next couple of like at the very last couple of classes. So I want to gauge just where you guys are at in terms of, are you working on your history graph? Are you at your relationship graph? And have you completed that? And if you have you been able to assign one of the three different statements that we talked about last week to the different events in your graph? So that's what I want to know. If you guys can just check in with me and let me know, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound okay? And this is like kind of at your own pace, right? So the idea is that you guys are able to get what you need out of this. So there's no shame in if you're not as far along as somebody else. That's okay. Life happens. So don't worry about that part. I'm just trying to gauge. I don't want to leave anybody behind in terms of where we're going. So as you tell me where you are, I'll help you kind of navigate what to do next. And then if I have to do a little review, I can do that too. Okay. All right. Cheryl, can you tell me like where you're at? I think I kind of know, but can you tell me where you're at in the process?
I believe I'm way behind
Okay.
because of um when we went out on spring break or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Spring break, yeah. Okay. Um I had a sick kid
Yeah.
and he'd been in the hospital yesterday, so we got home and I
Oh,
just don't, so I'm last I think the last we talked was somebody we were doing the graph, the first graph.
okay.
Or we were going back over it
Yeah.
and putting in missing information, I think.
Okay. Okay, great. So the next thing I want you to do is work on, so your graph, the history piece, you were really targeting more your personal loss anyway, right?
Mhm.
It wasn't as historical in terms of like all the losses in your life. You were more targeting the one loss anyway, correct?
Yeah, I actually, well, I targeted my son, but then my mom is in there a lot too, because I lost her right after, well, not right after, but 4 years after him. And
Okay,
so I,
yeah.
Yeah.
So for the purposes of this, let's
Mhm.
keep it let's keep it focused on your son and that
Okay.
loss. And
Okay.
then we can do other stuff with mom, right? So, but
Okay.
let's go, because I know that's kind of where you started. So why don't we just
Right.
with that, and they'll be less confusing for you. Okay, great.
Okay.
Now I know where you are. All right, Ace, tell me where you're at with your process.
Yeah, yesterday just took the day and went to coffee shop to write and just read my Bible and stuff like that. But I did finish the statements. So I'm right there
Okay,
with the statements. Mhm.
okay, great. So you're caught up. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, Cheryl Grace, I'm sorry, Brenda. My Brenda Grace. That's what I call you. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still working on the relationship graph.
Okay. Okay. So you've done the lost history graph. Now you're working on the relationship graph. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Brenda, what about my other Brenda? Brenda V.
I think I'm a little behind, but the next thing to work on is the relationship graph.
Okay. And so you've done your lost history graph, right? Now you're targeting your relationship graph,
The
right?
relationship graph, yeah.
Okay. And are you targeting it surrounding mom?
Yeah, I'm still on mom.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Okay. Awesome. Canva, what about you?
I think I'm pretty caught up. I targeted my mom and I was able to assign one of the 3 emotional statements to each on the relationship graph. So I've
Okay.
done that.
Okay. Great. Ron, how are you? Welcome. He's out there somewhere.
He's still coming on, says
Okay.
connecting.
Okay.
I'll
Anybody
have
else?
to be Susan's backup tonight.
Thank you. Can you take attendance for me, Brenda V?
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. So, okay, so you guys are all kind of sort of like in the same process, should we say. So, so Canva and Ace, let me address you guys first, okay? Because you've done your relationship graph, you've assigned one of the 3 statements to each of those events. Can you tell me what that process was like for you? And did it help you to kind of clarify some things? Canva, what about you? You're smiling. Tell me.
It was just nice to, first of all, acknowledge certain things, whether they were good things or bad things. It was just nice to say, you know what, I really enjoyed this, or this was really painful, and to be able to address it for the
Okay.
first time. That was really a good thing for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I felt really good about doing that. Some things were painful on the graph, you know, but it I felt like it helped a lot.
Mhm. Yeah. Great. Okay. Ace, what about you? Tell me about that process for you.
Yeah, some things were painful, like Canva mentioned. Um, I guess one thing in particular was my uncle, who I went into business with, and he wasn't. I felt as if he wasn't completely honest with me, and I. It was significant because it was, I think, the first time that I saw that even my own family, I couldn't trust.
Mm.
So just that was difficult. But I think no, I've dealt with it also in the past, but I think maybe just the practice of maybe writing it down and recollecting my thoughts, and maybe it's a form of finalizing it. I guess the Ed Sheeran thing, when you write down the song and you crumple it up and you throw it away.
Yeah,
It's helping me get there to that point, you know? Mhm.
right. Exactly. So, for the rest of you guys, let me share with you a little bit about, just for clarity, what they're talking about. Okay. So as you finish your relationship graph, you have different events all along the way in the relationship. The next part of the assignment is to assign one of the three, or you can do more than one of these three statements. Okay. One of them is considered an apology statement. Okay. And it can be, I apologize for taking $10 out of your purse when I was 10 years old. Okay. If it's your mom, right? It can be significant, or it can be kind of not as significant. So whatever pops in your mind in terms of anything you would like to apologize for within the relationship that you never got a chance to say. Okay. So that's one possibility. The second possibility is a forgiveness statement. Okay. I forgive you for having an affair, or I forgive you for being unfaithful if you're grieving the loss of a marriage, right? I forgive you for not coming to any of my basketball games, right? If it's a parent. So whatever it is that you feel is not complete, that you never had a chance to process with that significant person, this is your opportunity to be able to address it and to say it. Okay. So we have either an apology or a forgiveness statement. Okay. The third one is an a significant emotional statement. Okay. So that can be like, I never told you how much I loved that you cried when I sang, when I was singing on stage, that you were crying in the back row because it meant so much to you. I never told you how special it was that you forgave me when I did A, B, C, or D. Okay. So it's a significant emotional statement. Basically, it's pretty much anything that you've never got a chance to say, or never got a situation you never got a chance to address. Okay. So that's what Ace and Canva just got done doing. Okay. They took every single entry in their relationship graph and they addressed it with a significant emotional statement, an apology, or a forgiveness statement. Okay. So that's where, to get caught up, that's pretty much what needs to happen. And it sounds like you guys are all kind of right there in terms of being able to do that. And so, does that make sense? Does anybody have questions? No? Okay. Ron, I can see you're with us. Welcome. It's nice to have you back. We missed you last week. How are you doing, Ron?
I'm good. I'm good. Last week, I just didn't feel like talking to anyone.
Mm,
Kind of stayed in the house, stayed to myself, took care of some things around the house. And
mhm.
that was it. So
Yeah,
I'm good though. Had a wonderful weekend.
good. We totally understand that. Good. I'm
Yeah.
glad you took care of yourself. We did miss you.
I miss y'all too.
So did that make sense, what I just explained to you, Ron?
Yes, I was listening. You said an apology statement, a forgiveness statement, or a significant statement.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. So you guys, if I'm missing anybody, please jump in, let me know, right? Because I can only see a certain amount of people. I don't want to miss anybody. So, okay, so we're gonna heading in to the last few weeks, right? I think, I don't even know. Do we have 10 weeks? Are we supposed to go 10 weeks? I think so. Okay, so we're on week 8 this week, as far as I can tell. You can tell this is not my thing to be I'm not very detail oriented, should we say? I'm a good big picture person. So, okay,
Excuse me, but I
yes,
think it said through April the 5th.
okay.
Can someone correct me if I'm wrong?
Let me see here. Where am we
I
at?
think that's right, but we skipped spring break. So. I think it might
Oh, so we're
past it.
only April 5th, so we only have one more week?
Mhm.
Ooh, okay. Well, then we're gonna make this happen. Okay. So I'm gonna teach you, this is the last piece that we're gonna do, okay? And it's called a completion letter. So what I'm gonna have you guys do is, I want to talk a little bit about this letter and kind of, where we go with it and why it's important, okay? The whole goal of grief recovery is to complete your it's really completing your relationship more with your pain than you're not saying goodbye or completing the emotional relationship, right? You're just completing the part where the pain is so prevalent that you that it kind of defines the whole relationship. So what we're trying to do is help you, give you the tools to be able to complete that part of it. And so you guys have done all the legwork, you've done all the different components that it takes to complete the relationship, and this is the final step, okay? So let's talk about completion, right? It's important to have a desire to want to complete the relationship. I've worked with some people that have been in loss situations and traumatic loss situations like many of you guys have, and it takes a long time for you to even want to complete the relationship. The very fact that you guys are here and doing this work really says a lot about your motivation to complete the relationship. So I'm going to encourage you to walk through the rest of this, even though it may be scary. Okay. So we're about to begin the final actions that lead to the completion, and being scared of this final process is totally normal. And you guys have already taken a lot of the small steps that it's taken to get to this point. So good for you. We're going to take two major actions to do this letter. Okay. It's called a grief recovery completion letter. And you're going to be saying goodbye to the pain that's associated with the loss. Okay. And it means that you're going to be saying goodbye to all of the unfinished emotional business, and you're going to say goodbye to the physical relationship that had to end. Okay. What you're not saying goodbye to is the emotional relationship. And in fact, by becoming emotionally complete, you're actually allowing a new emotional relationship to blossom, because it's based on being complete with what's happened right up until now. You're not saying goodbye to the fond memories, right? You're just saying goodbye to the pain. And you're not, I think as a Christian too, keeping in mind that you're not saying goodbye to the hope of seeing that person in heaven either, right? Because all of those things are in place as believers, okay? So keep in mind that in your relationship graph, there might be, there's a high probability that many of the hopes and dreams and expectations that you had associated with the relationship may have never been fulfilled. So this is going to be your opportunity to say goodbye to those unmet hopes, dreams, and expectations, as well as saying goodbye to the pain associated with those unmet dreams, hopes or expectations. You're completing the relationship you had so that you can begin a new one with your significant person that you lost. And the new one is based on you being emotionally complete with all the things that did or did not happen. Does that make sense to you guys? It's kind of like, if you think about it, like it's like if you have a big pitcher and it's full of pain. And the pitcher is the person that you love, but so much of is filled, that so much of that relationship is defined by the pain because it's so prevalent, it's so big, right? So what we're doing is we're pouring some of that out in completing the relationship, some of that pain, and then we're allowing ourselves to fill that pitcher up with something that's different and fresh and new. So the relationship piece is still there. You still have a relationship with that person. It's just a different relationship. And it's not defined by your pain. Okay.
A couple of days ago. So I try to imagine that I've learned these things and am in a better place of non-judgment and accepting. So with my mother, not judging her and trying to realize she may not have intended the harm or the pain that it caused me, and trying to picture her as that loving, joyful, sometimes fun, carefree person, And the other day a memory came and it was kind of like, oh, you probably went through this too, Mother, didn't you?
Mm.
And it was like so different than, in the past. Yeah, because
Perfect. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Right?
Yeah.
As you're working through kind of emptying out that jar or that pitcher of pain, you're able to have more room to kind of go, oh gosh, I wonder if mother felt that same way. Or you're connecting with her on a different level than maybe you had any bandwidth for before.
Yeah. Thinking about her being a perfect, everything's perfect and made right in heaven,
Right.
and good and loving. And so seeing her that way and seeing her wanting for me to be there already,
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay. Anybody else had any kind of sort of realizations or anything that kind of hit you that was unexpected?
Last week, so we were talking about this. I think Sunday, I got a Facebook Messenger from my daughter's younger sister, and she sent me a video of my daughter getting her hair did by mother.
Mm.
Hello? Okay, something happened on my end. And she sent me a video, and I responded by saying it's a bittersweet moment, bittersweet. It's bitter because we don't have her here in the present in the physical,
Mhm.
but the sweet part was that by videos and photos, and we'll be able to like have her here with us, you know. So that's the sweet part is we'll be able to see her and look at videos and hear her laughter and stuff and see her. But the bitter part, like what you were saying about not having her here in the physical. So to let her go to say goodbye in the physical, but not saying goodbye to the emotional relationship.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I had that experience that probably 3 or 4 days ago with the sister. So one thing it's doing is bringing me and her sister, because her sister's not my biological child.
Mhm.
But so we're gonna, and I text her and told her that we have to get together and share videos and photos that each other have. So
Mm,
that'll be part of, you know, I guess starting the new relationship.
yes.
It's I know it's part of the healing process, but you know, it hurts, but you know, it's
Mhm.
part of the healing process. So
Mhm. Yeah, and I think it's important to be realistic that we talk about completing the painful part. And even though we complete the painful things by saying the things we never got to say or asking for apologies or forgiving, it doesn't mean it isn't going to still be painful, because it'll probably never cease to be painful on some level, right? But I think there's a difference between experiencing times where your pain can kind of ebb and flow or kind of hit you at different moments or seasons, you know, when triggers happen, but to live in that place and have it paralyze you is different, right? And so the goal is it's really hard because it's sort of cyclical, right? Like if you're paralyzed because of your pain, then how do you get enough energy or forward movement to even have what you need to try to get you know, to get unstuck, right? If you were able to get unstuck, then it wouldn't be a problem, right? So the very fact that the pain is keeping you frozen, I think it's kind of a miracle on some levels that you have even enough strength to get beyond just being, you know, frozen in that state. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's why, you know, you have to be really gracious with yourself and really patient with yourself, that as you move through this process, you can't rush it, but you don't want to get stuck in it either, right? That's why we keep pushing you to do things that are physical, like writing things down. I'm giving you a framework for thinking about your loss that hopefully gives you enough structure that it keeps you moving forward in a productive way so that you don't get stuck. But to say that we're going to complete the relationship so much so that there won't be pain is not realistic, right? Because there's always going to be pain, right? And it depends on the type of loss as well, right? I'm not feeling anywhere near the kind of pain that some of you guys who have lost a child feel, right? It's a very different pain, right? And so I think it's important to honor that as well, right? The nature of the loss, right? And you know, grieving the loss of a hope or a dream that maybe I didn't get to have the kind of dad that I would have wanted to have, you know, that would come up and hug me and tell me how much he loved me and wrap his arms around me. And, you know, it's like I didn't have that kind of dad, but that pain is very different than the other painful losses, right? So that's why, you know, when we started out talking about not judging each other's loss or pain or not comparing them, right? I have a lot of clients that come in that have done like grief recovery, and they're sitting, one person is sitting next to someone who lost grandpa, and they just lost their 5-year-old daughter, right? It's kind of like, it's almost insulting to think that those different painful experiences would be in the same category, right? One person had a chance to live, their life fully and completely, but yet the significance of the loss is just as powerful to each person, right? That's why we talk about, the uniqueness of the loss is significant and unique to each person. And that's why we talk about, like, we were talking about, like, not judging each other's loss or pain, right? And you guys have just done a beautiful job of that, like staying focused on what you're processing and yet being there for each other. And you guys are awesome and amazing. But I think that it's really important to keep all of those different elements in mind, and to, more than anything else, give yourself a lot of grace and a lot of care and empathy as you go through this process, because it is really hard. And honestly, this last piece is even more difficult because it feels so final. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about what goes into the completion letter. So we there are certain things that they want you to do, and they'll talk about it in the book, but there are certain things they want you to do for the letter to be even more final and effective. When you talk to a friend on the phone, you conclude the conversation, with a word goodbye, which is a signal that you're going to end the conversation. So we conclude this letter with goodbye to signal the end of this communication. Okay, so we want you to use the words goodbye. For the vast majority of grieving people, the most effective and accurate closing is simply, I love you, I miss you, goodbye, Dad or son or who. However, many of you are going to have difficulty with the I love you and I miss you part. If those statements are not truthful for you, then do not say them. An effective alternative is, I have to go now, or I have to let go of the pain. Goodbye, Dad. You can create other closing statements based on your own unique relationship, but what should remain constant are the very words goodbye. And any failure to say them can often I was going to say, like, negate all of the good that you've done, right? So you've gotten to this far, so we want you to be able to say goodbye. It's in the goodbye that completes the communication. Don't substitute other words. Not saying goodbye leaves the communication open and runs the risk of leaving you incomplete. Okay. And as you guys do the homework, I think the homework is, let me look here. See, yeah, so the homework, if you read pages 145 through 151, and I'm going to send this to you. I'm going to send the homework to you just to kind of remind you guys of kind of where we're at. So I'm going to send the homework, and if you guys have any questions or any frustrations, or if it's really triggering for you, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to kind of help you, walk you through it. This is really the most important piece. Because if we can't do this piece, then we might need, like, maybe one-on-one, we might need to go back and figure out where the disconnect is, or where the difficulty is, where we call it in our world, we call it resistance, like where that resistance is in not being able to say goodbye. You know, sometimes, sometimes our pain can so define us in terms of how we operate in our world, right? Meaning, say we're 6 years old and we had a traumatic experience. We had a parent that was violent with us. Okay. And we learn at very young that we're vulnerable and that we have something to fear in this world. And we become sad or we become like very fearful. And sometimes that narrative can define us as we move through our lives. And it can all be defined and based on one traumatic experience when we were 6 years old. And so being able to say goodbye to the traumatic experience and maybe the one that caused the traumatic experience can literally like change the trajectory of how we live our life. Because we are able to relearn that we don't have to be defined by an experience or by a person that gave us a narrative that didn't work in our favor. So I'm wondering if you guys can take a little time right now and think about maybe a narrative that you have been living with that hasn't really served you as well. And let's see if we can talk a little bit about how we can sort of work through that process so that we have more bandwidth to be able to say goodbye in this, like what's holding us back if there is any resistance is what I'm getting at. Okay, so think about an earliest memory, whatever pops in your head. And let's talk about that earliest memory. And let's see if we can make any connections. Does anybody have anything that pops in their head that they can think of? I'm going to turn off this recording just to make it more private here.